I'm going to give you now a bit of a game, and it's something I've only done once before, and we're going to call it just best and worst. It's pretty easy. I'm going to give you a question. It's going to be the answer's going to be tell me the best of the question and the worst of the question. And the first one is the best and worst giants of wrestling other than Andre.
Blackjack Mulligan, one of the best. I mean, it's funny that people don't consider him as big as he was. He was 6'7", 6'8". And like I mentioned earlier, James, he had hands like catcher's mitts. And tough guy. And he actually was the one that made me in Florida because the first time I worked with him, they're stretching him out. So, and the worst, the McGuire twins.
Did you? Now I've heard this before. I can't remember who said it, but someone said it's a singular horror show when you have to see those two in the shower after the match.
It looked like melting sundays. Oh, and they married. I think they married the girls. I believe were twins. You know what I mean? And they had special harnesses, and oh God.
What?
That was a real
special
what?
harnesses. Special harnesses
to join together as man and wife.
My God, the greatest and worst tag teams ever.
Midnight Express, Rock and Roll Express.
The Jet Set.
Oh, by far. Daddy said so. Daddy said so. Yeah, by far. That's the topper. Jet Set.
This is a bit of a weird one, actually. I'm not sure there is a worse, but the greatest wrestling midget, and was there a terrible one? I don't know. You tell me.
Lord Littlebrook, Little Beaver, Fuzzy Cupid were the great ones. There was a French-Canadian guy. I think it was Little Frenchie. He came down to wrestle. And we used to wrestle at Wednesday mornings in Florida, do the taping, and he was supposed to have a midget match. And Curtis gave him a cup of coffee. And about 30 minutes later, the guy's got his head in a bucket. And that was it for Little Frenchie. That was it. Most of the midgets are little people who could really work.
Next one is the best and worst foreign country you wrestled in.
I like England. I like the people there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even though you still haven't let my homeland go, even Paul McCartney said, "Give Ireland back the Irish." I think the worst place was Nigeria.
Oh, is that Poweruti territory?
No, that he has that, but I did go for a guy called the Prophet. Barbarian set the tour up. He was a faith healer, and it was a funny thing. It was a cult. He had this thing called the Holy Temple of the Sacrament or something, but he had a inside arena that held 15,000 people. Everything was marble from the floor to the ceiling to the walls. And he had another 15,000 outside in the amphitheater. And the thing started on Friday and ran till Monday morning, Friday night to Monday morning. And everybody that was there was a white young girl. And they all looked alike. They had the ponytails pulled tight. And I'm watching them. And, he would come and heal the people and drive the demons out. And I'm watching them. I'm going by a room, and I see them put the Alka-Seltz in the girl's mouth and teach her how to do it. And I went in and I said, "Gotcha, I used to do that 30 years ago." But it was horrible. We were taken everywhere in a van with military with AK-47s. And I used to think, what if they hit a bump and pull the trigger? You know what I mean? It was horrible, horrible, horrible.
Good payday at least, though.
Yeah, but I mean, and I wanted to go to Africa, but I mean, you couldn't even go out. They wouldn't even let us go out. We were locked down there.
I honestly thought you were going to tell me it was a terrible payday.
No, it was good.
Oh.
It was good. Yeah.
Next one, the most underrated and most overrated main event star.
Well, if it was just wrestling, not main events, Brad Armstrong. Brad Armstrong should have been one of the biggest stars in the business. He was so smooth, but I think that was part of the problem too. Was he was so smooth, and if the Brad Armstrong in the locker room could have come out on his interviews, he would have been a huge star. Main event. Ox Baker.
Really? See, I hear loads of great things about Ox Baker as a personality.
Oh, as a personality and as a person, and as the first time in, he's going to draw your money. But you know, 2 left feet, he trip over you, he trip over himself. Nicest guy, great personality, had that great voice, the Hart punch, and a lot of stuff going for him. But he was not aggressive enough, even though when he worked, he tried to be aggressive, but that's something, if you're a heel, you either have it or don't. One of the greatest, I tell guys when I talk to them that want to be heels, if you want to see a heel, watch Paul Orndorff. He had a different gear. James, you remember when he'd get a guy in the corner, start kicking him?
Mm-hmm.
And he'd go from first gear to second gear, and he end up in sixth gear. He was an amazing, amazing heel. I used to love to watch him perform.
The best and worst gimmick.
The best gimmick, Undertaker. The worst gimmick was me and Nash as Oz and the Great Wizard.
I may be asking about that in a little bit, but I'll move on for now, so keep that in your mind. The best and worst booker/writer.
Well, as a booker, I'd say back in the day, Eddie Graham, but the most creative guy was Dusty and Terry Funk. The worst booker, believe it or not, Roy Shires at the end. Roy Shires. He blew, San Francisco Open with Ray Stevens at the end. He was a complete moron.
Best and worst. Do you know what? I was going to ask one. That'll come down later. Best and worst road agents.
Best were Paul Orndorff and Arn Anderson. Ole was, even though he was a smart guy, when he became a road agent, he didn't give a shit, and he would just fluff it off.
Best and worst ring announcer.
You won't know this guy, I don't think. The Ali Liston fight in Miami when Ali won with Cassius Clay. The ring announcer was Frank Friedman. Sharp as a tack. Little Jewish guy, perfect tie, perfect suit, greased back hair, would smoke a cigarette like that, you know what I mean? Just out of a Hemingway movie, or not a Hemingway, but a movie in the 50s. He was super. and he would announce and get the people going. He was probably the best, and I had the pleasure of him. He was not only the boxing announcer, he was the wrestling announcer. And back then, Angelo Dundee's brother, Chris Dundee, ran Miami. So there'd be a lot of fighters in the audience, and he introduced them and made it really like a sport. The worst ring announcer, let me see. Coach John Heath, who was a wonderful guy, would ring announce sometimes. And John, I don't know if he had bad eyes or something, but invariably get the guys' names wrong or crossed up.
Do you know when you said a boxing guy, I thought you were going to say Jimmy Lennon Sr. then, but apparently not. I'll move on. Best and worst payoff man.
Nick Goulas was the worst payoff man, and I think Jim Barnett was the best. And even though I knocked Roy Shires, he was a great payoff man.
Best and worst town for audience reaction.
The Omni, when it was running steadily, when it was part of the territory, was the best. The worst town was Jacksonville, Florida, believe it or
not. Why particularly there? Because AEW runs there all the time now. So
yeah, back in the day, well, if we ran it on a Saturday, it was a big building. If we ran it on a Saturday, we would draw a great crowd. When we ran it on a Thursday, it was in between paychecks, and we draw a third of the house that we would on Saturday, and it was so big that people were spread out. So when it's not condensed, the people will say, well, should I be yelling? Should I be screaming? Yeah.
And the very last one is best and worst storyline ever.
I think the Ric Flair Steamboat Funk. Rick went from the most hated wrestler. 20 seconds later, he was the biggest babyface. The worst, the Ding Dongs. The Ding Dongs.
Jim Herd questions may be incoming quite soon. Go on.
I'll give you another one. I'm in the booking committee. Jimmy Cornette's ready to have a heart attack, as you know how it gets. Herd comes in and says, I got a great idea. He said, I'm going to have a team called the Hunchbacks. You heard
it? Yes.
And I said, Jim, that's a great idea. Let's put them against the Rock and Roll Express, and we'll go to the Atlanta Stadium. But the Rock and Roll will go over. He said, how are they going to go over? I said, well, Ricky Morton's going to have a shovel. He's going to dig a hole and put the hump in there and cover him. 1, 2, 3. He said, great idea. I get to go up and go to the bathroom. Cornette follows me. He says, he'll do it. He'll do it. I said, yeah, he will. He had no clue, not a clue. He reminded me of what's the Naked Gun?
Leslie
When the
Nielsen.
guy comes out and said, I don't have a clue, not a clue. Stainless steel artery canal, pulling the handkerchiefs. Oh, the guy's doing nothing.
How come Jim Herd had never heard of submissions? It's like, yeah, fine, they can't be pinned, they've got a hunchback, but just submit them.
He had his own vision, and I think he did shit to piss everybody off. Just to piss them off.
And just before we get off Jim Herd and the stupid thing, George South told me, I think it was George South who told me this recently, was that there was a tag team that came out that was meant to be like the Sicilians or the Gangsters. This is a Jim Herd creation as well, a tag team. And they had like the violin cases, and then they took actual guns or guns that looked very real out and started firing them in the audience. And this actually got it to the ring, not filmed, but they actually did a match and the audience scattered.
Yeah, I remember that. And George was right. George was a great, great guy. I don't know how they allowed her to. Well, I do, because they didn't know anything either. You know, the North Tower knew nothing. And they thought he was a genius. But I think that got him into some trouble. You know what I mean? I think that got him, because Turner is very, very liberal himself, Ted, you know, and the guns things wouldn't sit well with him.